Sure, back on the record. Western wheatgrass. Okay, so western wheatgrass, I'll try to always go in order. So we'll start with that it is native. It's native here. Then I'll go over the identification features. Western wheatgrass, pretty much all the grass in this area here. And really the key identification feature is that the leaves grow very upright. They state that it's at a 45-degree angle to the stem, approximately, and they're very rigid. They almost look pointy, right? Where a lot of other grasses, the grass kind of gets loose and it falls over. Western wheat is different in that respect. So typically, you know, just as an easygoing identification, we're going to do seed head identification. But really, the leaf is actually easier, in my opinion, to identify western wheatgrass than the seed head. Now, the seed head is here, and it looks just kind of like a small, tight wheat, in my opinion, right? But really, if you kind of scan this whole area, right, you'll see how the leaf structure is quite upright and rigid and pointy. Western wheatgrass is good for all livestock and wildlife for forage value, and it's quite abundant or common all over the prairies and ditches all over. And now that you have an eye for that leaf structure, when you're driving outside of town or to Winnipeg and ditches, you'll start to be able to see it, right? You can't not see it now. You'll start to pick it up a little. Okay, next we're going to do 13. That's number 1.
You could if you wanted to. You really, I wouldn't mind.
I really wouldn't like it. You want to call it?
Like, don't want to go next.
You painted it faster than I did.
Yeah, it took you a minute, eh?
Yeah,
Okay, came up before you.
okay, you guys have actually seen this, but it was much smaller in the weed garden. You guys know what this is?
Absent.
Boom, absent, right? But just kind of in a mature state. And well, first we'll start. It's introduced, not native. It's introduced. Introduced from Europe and Asia. And then for identification, well, we went over. If you look low, right, you can really see the leaf, and it's exactly how it was in the weed garden, right? Quite easy. However, if you're just looking up here, it actually looks like another plant that we're going to be identifying later. So that's kind of why I wanted to bring it in here today. Also, at this stage, I think it's good, you know, when we're in the weed garden, I was telling you how many seeds each plant can produce. And some of you are like, really? But you can start to imagine, right, if all this went to seed, how much seed would be produced, right? It'd be quite a bit. So that's good. Of course, the leaf has kind of the silvery color to it. And of course, it has the distinctive smell, right? And I know some of you smelled it the other day and did not enjoy it. So, and it's not really grazed by anything other than sheep, maybe goats. So it has poor forage value, and it's quite common. Okay. You're okay, eh?
Oh yeah.
Because if you're not, you could take a break and you can get you some notes. Okay. Okay, next we have switchgrass. It's in your book. There's a few, but there's also empty spaces.
I like your shirt.
Heard that?
I can get that too.
Okay. So switchgrass is native. Yeah, that's what that is. Use
She was
that.
showing us yesterday, and I was just like, what?
Well, this is perfect timing then, isn't it? Which class is it? Oh, perfect. Perfect. So native for identification. Again, just we're doing an overview. I think the easiest way, of course, is this panicle is quite open. There might be different ways that you kind of describe it, right? It's kind of loose and quite large. It is excellent for forage value for livestock and wildlife. And if you look down and you see the amount of leaf material, there's quite a bit of leaf material from the plant, right? It all kind of grows up, but at the same time, like when you looked at the western wheatgrass, right, it was very rigid and pointy. This is growing up, but it's much longer. It's the leaf blade is much looser, right? You can kind of see the difference, I believe. And it's quite abundant in pastures, ditches, and so on. Easy to find. Okay.
Next one's big blue stem. I swear to God, he's showing us the blue stems. No,
Okay, next is big blue stem.
They definitely are different.
Why do they call it blue if it doesn't look like blue? Seems to be a common theme.
Good question. You look into it. Let me know next Wednesday.
I'll try to remember.
Can't wait to find out. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, it's native. Just for starting out, there's three main identification features compared to at least the other grasses we're going to look at here today. It's quite a bit taller. Two, as you just observed, it does have a distinct color, although not blue. It's got a reddish purple color to it. But probably, right, the feature that's most identifiable is the inflorescence. Kind of grows, if you use your imagination, in trees. And they call that turkey's foot. So as if you saw a tract, like a turkey foot tract, it would look in groups of three like that. So that would help you with the identification of it. It's excellent forage value for all livestock and wildlife, and yeah, it's quite abundant in many areas like ditches and pastures and so on. what's this right here? Very good. And then you kind of see the green just popping up. It's real nice in the sun there. What's that? Western wheatgrass. You can see how the leaves, right, are quite upright and almost spiky looking. Excellent. What's this? Canada thistle. Perfect. Here we have purple prairie clover. Purple prairie clover. Good one. Okay. Get in there. It's native. I think it's pretty easily identifiable. Right, it's got the purple seed head. And the leaves are quite fine growing up. It's a little bit different than what you've seen. It's also a legume. It fixes nitrogen. And it's really only good for sheep, for goats. So it's not very good other than that, and maybe for some wildlife. But not good for grazing, for cattle or anything like that. And yeah, it's quite abundant, quite common to find it. You know what? I can identify something over here. I kind of walk by it. Let's just go back a couple of feet this way. I'm gonna be happy with this. Get a good look. Just back up the stuff. Everybody. This is smooth brome grass. And it's all along here.
That's where the M in it, right? It has the M on the leaf.
I don't see all my thunder.
Oh, sorry.
You know it. Absolutely. And we're going to look at that. You bet. Absolutely.
You can teach the class.
So,
Yeah, I got it.
smooth brome grass. It is introduced. Oh goodness. From Europe. And the identification feature of it really kind of depends, of course, what stage. So I wanted to back us up here because this is kind of the most vegetative. And I believe that it's like that because I think this area looks like it got this section probably got mowed once or twice throughout the summer. So I think that's why it's looking the way it is, which is great for our purposes. So two things, the leaf, just if you're kind of looking at it, they grow upright, but then they really curl down. And it's quite kind of a curly leaf, especially when you see it, you know, a little further in development, when it's more kind of brown looking. You'll see it quite often in ditches. So behind here, right again, you can see the western wheatgrass, much shorter and pointier. And here you can see the smooth brome is much longer and it's much looser and kind of curly. Now, as we said, on the leaf, usually halfway up, maybe up to 2/3, you'll see the M, which is really unique, right? Most grasses don't have an initial on them to help you with the identification. And it's really, have you guys seen it in class? Yeah. Well, you went through that. Well, guess what? Why don't we spend 60 seconds? I think this is a mowed area, so I think it's fine if you just pick a blade And see if you can find it halfway to the page off. I guarantee everybody will see it today. You got lots. Yeah.
Remember you guys
Somebody have one ready? Oh, thanks.
There's like a little M in the. Can you see it?
I think so.
It's like you can kind of like see where it folds over, and like you can like feel it. Yeah, I don't know. But
I know nothing, but thanks. Did everybody see it?
why'd you put such a cutie little grassy?
Okay. Here we've got some Lucy spurge. I just thought we would identify that. You can really see the, I think this is a plant they don't mind if you pick a little of. Is it not on there? No, that's alright. You can just add it. There's some space. So of course it's introduced. And the identification features, I think we went over in the weed garden. Yeah. But I didn't really want to pick any there, but here, right, you can see the white latex type sap material coming out of it. And that's one of the main features why it's sold for livestock or any type of feed, right? Animals other than goats, but only really hungry goats, right? Consider this. Okay. Just the, I guess white sap would be the best way to identify that.
Is it like not good for them, or is it
It
not?
causes sores.
Kind of like the milk.
Yeah, very similar. Yeah. So here we have some kochia, right? It's a bad area. Some leaf spurge. And then here, what grass is this? This would all be the smooth brome. So you can see the, we didn't really go over the seed head, so it's a bit bigger here. You know, it just kind of reminds me, you know, as a kid, when you'd kind of go like that, right to grass, it kind of, I don't know, kind of has that look to me a little bit how I identify it. And then also the leaf, it's really kind of quite a lot of vegetative material. right? You can see like it's quite a lot of grass blade there, and they're kind of long, and they really are somewhat loose. And of course, if you got close, you would look for, see if there's an M on it if you wanted to get a better identification. So there we go, perfect. This is not in your book, so you can just at the end find a spot for it. There's some spaces. This is wild licorice. L-I-C-O-R-I-C-E.
Thank you.
Wild licorice. L-I-C-O-R-I-C-E. It is native. Identification features. I mean, I kind of want to say it speaks for itself, but you know, at this stage, right, it has burrs on it that come off quite easily. Get attached to clothing or fur or what have you. And then the leaf structure, to me, it reminds me of a caragana leaf. I don't know if you've identified caragana. Right, the caragana has like the smaller leaflets going along the petioles, and it looks similar to that. Also, right, the stem is woody material, so I think it's pretty easy to identify. The root system is rhizomes, has like deep rhizome type root system, so you can kind of see how it's spreading here. It's not good at all for livestock or wildlife, but the root can be used as flavoring, apparently, for root beer and chewing tobacco. There we go. And it is very common, easy to find. Here is Western Snowberry. Western Snowberry. Western Snowberry is in your book?
Yeah.
Well, it's all this. Okay. So it's native. And for identification, right, it is, of course, you can see it's shrubby. It's a shrub. It's got woody material. And at this time of year, you can see the berries on it, right, are very, very kind of light yellow color. Okay, not good for wildlife or livestock. However, apparently the roots can be used for like a tonic. What does the tonic do? It increases your vitality. does that mean? You can connect the dots for yourself. And the fruits, right? It could cause vomiting and diarrhea and so on.
Baby's not good. Sad.
Very. Here we have prairie sage. Prairie sage. It might not be there.
Blind.
Okay, it's native. Did you guys get the name? Prairie sage? See, and look at all the wild licorice on you. The burrs all over your pants. And for identification, I mean, just again, if you, there's different ways to look at it. It actually reminds me a little bit of like a cannabis plant, right? You kind of can see that. The yeah, whatever, right? Sure. The leaves are very hairy and white, covered with hairs. It also has a smell. Not great, but better than absinthe. So that's something. And it's kind of growing up the side of this little hill here, but most of it is kind of growing somewhat slanted down. And this is why I want to identify kochia, is because at first glance, or if you're looking up the hill, it'd be probably easy to misidentify this if you just look quickly, right? But then when you look at the leaves of kochia, and then the leaves here, you can see it's definitely quite different, right? So that's identification. Yeah, it's just good for sheep, goats, and you'd probably classify it as poor for wildlife, poor for other livestock. And apparently this could be used for traditional remedies for stomach ache and heartburn. I won't test you on that kind of stuff, of course. It's just for fun. So, however, I have not tried it myself. I'll keep it by this sign if anybody wants to come back and take a look at it.
I'm just probably taking a little bit. Repeated enough. In order to take let your belt out.
Right here, we have Indian grass. Indian grass. It's in your book. Okay, it is native. And for identification, it has a pretty large seed head And if you feel it, not now, later, it's silky feeling, almost like foxtail barley. Would be a good comparison to what it feels like. It's kind of fluffy. Yeah, and it's sought after or favored by livestock and wildlife. We'll try to eat this first. They do like it. And it's quite common, quite abundant to find. Okay, just two more. So number 12 should be Side Oats Grama.
Is that the eyebrow one?
It is. It is. Side Oats Grama.
It might be or be minor.
Yeah.
You want that one?
It's right here. The Side Oats Grama.
Oh, the sign over there.
It's native. Identification feature is sounds like there's a little cut in the bit. I'm calling it the eyebrow eyelash. You know, just the name Side Oats, right? All the seeding bodies are right on the stem, right on the side. There's some smaller ones here. For those of you on this side, I thought there's some over here. There isn't a lot in this area. Yeah, right there, just a bit. This time of year, right, a lot of it, the seed is kind of gone, and that makes it, of course, quite a bit more challenging to ID. But this is a good specimen right here. Taint's good for livestock and wildlife forage, and it is quite common and abundant. Okay, last. But not least, and I hate to ask you, but you're right in front of it. No problem. Sorry. Is Little Blue Stem. Little Blue Stem. Which one? Little Blue Stem. It's native. And to identify, it does also have, like Big Blue, a bit of a red purple coloration to it. And then the seeding, the inflorescence, to me, they're fluffy when I see them, and everybody views it differently. You know what I see there that helps me remember it is it's almost like fly fishing lures that have like the little feathers on them. They're supposed to look like flies. Can you guys kind of see that a little bit? That's kind of what it reminds me of when I view that. And yeah, it is excellent. Good to excellent for livestock and wildlife, and quite common. And we are now going to do an activity. Please stand on the gravel. Then you're ready. This area, there's at least 8, if not more, of the 13 that we identified. Spend 60 seconds on your own and just count how many you can ID. And that, yeah, from there. Because if everybody crowds in, then we can't see anything. And then we'll go and we'll kind of go over it in a minute.